Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome to the show. Katie Shelkey joining us here today. Excited to have her here. ReadySetRelease.com is the website. And what does she do? She is a professional organizer helping so many in North Dakota and maybe all over too. Do you have virtual services, Katie?
I don't yet, but that's the hope for one day.
Exactly. We could expand. Well, first and foremost, welcome. Please introduce yourself to our listeners today.
Yes, I'm Katie Shelkey, and I am the owner of Ready Set Release, and I am here in North Dakota. So I've served areas outside of Minot, North Dakota. So I've traveled a little bit all over the state, but yeah, so I do professional organizing.
Fantastic. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. You do organizing for individuals, you mentioned families, also businesses as well. And before we get into some of the work that you're doing, I always like to start with the person. Katie, tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up? Where did this whole organizational love of organizing come from?
Yeah, I actually grew up in a really small town in North Dakota. We didn't have any stoplights, so it's kind of a little bit of a different upbringing, but
Wow.
yeah, so I grew up in a small town, North Dakota. I've been in North Dakota my whole life, but I have traveled, so haven't been stuck here too much. But as far as how I got into it,
Yeah,
it is a little bit of a three-part story, but
we
um,
got time. Go for it.
beautiful, beautiful. So my background is actually in social work.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a deviation from that, but I still get to implement my social work degree into a lot of what I do. So I absolutely love that part of it. But I was working for the state at the time, and then COVID hit, and our jobs got moved to working from home. And that was not my forte, especially being a social worker. I really miss that socialization piece of things. And at the time, my dad was sick and he actually ended up passing away. And so, after he had passed away, I wasn't quite ready to go back to work. So, I kind of took a little bit of a gap year and
Hmm.
I was nannying for a while. And the mom of the girls that I was nannying mentioned that, you keep organizing all of our stuff and I absolutely love it, but maybe you could like turn this into something. Um, while you're trying to figure things out. And so I just kind of went for it. I dove into the research of organizing, finding different resources. If there was a need in my area, and there was only one other person in the area who does it. So it seemed like a good avenue to take. So that's kind of how I ended up here. And it has been an incredible journey, and I've loved every moment of it. So
Oh, well, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you. And if we do want to reach out, would you mind sharing the website, a phone number, any social media pages as well?
yes, so you can find me on Facebook at Ready Set Release. The website is www.readysetrelease.com. My phone number is 701-390-3058. And I take calls, texts, whatever people are looking to contact me by. And then I also have an email at katie@readysetrelease.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Let's break down some of the work you're doing. So, to start, as an organizer, what do you love doing most? Just curious.
I would say probably closets are my favorite.
Okay.
Or kids as playrooms is another amazing one that I love doing. So those would probably be my top two favorites.
Interesting. Closets. So let's break it down. Let's go into a home. You do kitchens, obviously closets, bathrooms, bedrooms. You do attics, garages. I mean, is any project too big?
Not at the moment. I mean, there's some projects you walk in, it's like, oh, this is, a big project, but I'm always happy to get started, and it's so worth it to see the client's face at the end of it. So yeah, I do a little bit of everything. Indoors, outdoors, you name it.
What would you say what some of the challenges are with people in their homes? I mean, I have a 6 and 8 year old, right? I am organizationally challenged. I'm a single mother. We live here full time together, 24/7, sports, school, activities. So I have piles of mail all in my house. Then my bedroom, you can't even see the floors. There's piles of the mail, there's clothes. There's one room in the house that's packed with all the kids' old clothes and papers. It's a disaster zone. I can't get it together mentally. It's causing me anguish and fear and anxiety. Do you notice this a lot in your clients? Because some just don't have the time to do it. And tell me about what disorganization does to people. I mean, I'm a living witness of it. Tell me about some of your clients.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's something we all struggle with. I mean, even professional organizers hire other professional organizers because, some people might love organizing paper, but they cannot get their laundry together.
Hmm.
So I think it's something we all struggle with, and I try to take that into meeting with my clients is that we've all been there. We've all been so tired and overwhelmed at the end of the day that, you don't want to have to pick up one more thing. And so I'd say a big piece of it is just kind of giving yourself grace to not judge yourself or be so hard on yourself. Like, this is something everybody struggles with. And I really enjoy giving people kind of like a catch all space.
Hmm.
And then I recommend going through that, like once a week or something. So that way, it's not so heavy all at once. You kind of break it up into bite-sized pieces so it's not so overwhelming. If you've got 10 minutes, it's like, you know what? I haven't gone through the clothes in their closet since they were 2 and now they're 5,
Yeah.
Give yourself that 10 minutes just to pull out a few pieces, or if you're walking by something and you see it, it's like, "Oh, I need to go through that," and you've got 2 minutes, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Um, and that way you're not letting yourself kind of build up that anxiety and sometimes that depression and that comes along with it and all that guilt and the shame and everything else too. So
Yeah. But a lot
just
of that.
breaking things up into bite-sized pieces, and a lot of clutter sometimes can be in our schedules too. So part of that is taking a step back, looking at our schedules and decluttering our schedules. So
Now, have you, so your clients hire you to work alone, or do a lot of them want to be hands on? Because there's also like this attachment issue to our stuff. Could you share a little bit about that?
absolutely. So every project is different. So that's
Hmm.
why I go in and I do a quote. I get to know them. I ask them, what sort of things in your house are important to you? Like, what
Hmm.
are you going to have a hard time going through? And I'm not so much focused on just like clearing out everything. And if someone wants to live the minimalist life, like I will absolutely support them in that. But I find a lot of people just want to make the most of the space that they do have with the things that they do have. So I'll walk through them, get to know what's important to them, what's the most overwhelming. And some people are like, I'm going to go to work. You do your thing. I don't want to look at it. You just send me the bill afterwards. And some people, they do want to be in there and hands on. So I just tailor it to what they need. But there is a lot of emotional attachment to things. And so I always recommend having like I need to think about this pile, because a lot of people get decision fatigue in the process, and it gets very overwhelming, and I always let them know, like, "Hey, you're gonna feel very
Yeah.
overwhelmed in this first stage because we pull everything out."
Oh,
And so I recommend that they take breaks, go for a walk, eat a snack, sit down, play on your phone, watch a TV show, like, I'll keep working, and we'll get through it together. So it's kind of a team effort if they're wanting to be hands-on.
beautiful. Good to know because, a lot of us struggle with this, and that's where you come in. What are some suggestions do you tell your clients and during the organization process? Like, donation? I mean, do you offer that up or people are very attached to their stuff? So how do you work with that?
Yes, that is kind of a touchy subject sometimes because some things they're wanting to donate, but looking at it and knowing what different donation centers are willing to accept, it's not something that donation centers are willing to accept, but it's not something that they can necessarily keep. So sometimes that's a difficult conversation to have with people like, hey, maybe you know what, this has lived its life. Um, you made the most of it, but it's time that we probably need to throw this out. So that can be a difficult
Okay.
conversation, but yep, it's visiting. I mean, I live in North Dakota. It's cold. We already had like a big snowstorm, so there's snow
Really?
outside. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So that's things where people have a lot of like snow boots and snow
Yeah.
pants and clothes that they've had forever, but they don't use anymore. And so it's like, hey, these are hot ticket items right now at the
Hmm.
shelters and donation centers, and they're like, oh, okay, like I'm more comfortable letting go of it then because I know like someone actually needs this item. So
Beautiful. Now, you also mentioned that normalizing the clutter we experience in our lives. You want to talk about that and judging people for the state of their home when they already feel embarrassed and vulnerable. Could you share a little bit about that?
yeah, when I go in and I do my consult, so many people feel embarrassed. And I
Mm-hmm.
have on my website, do not clean before I come because that helps me see like the areas that you're struggling in
Yeah.
with, upkeep and everything like that too. But I just walk in and I'm like, hey, this is a very normal, like cluttery pile in pretty much every single house I've seen in. And a lot of people whose house doesn't have much clutter, but they still hire me to do certain things. They usually have cleaners that they come in along with it. So just giving people again the grace to be understanding with themselves that this is normal. It doesn't have to be something that you're ashamed of. And I absolutely admire that people are willing to reach out and ask for help, even though they're absolutely embarrassed. And, everyone, like I said, some organizers have their own professional organizers. So
Good
it's one of
point.
those things where we all need it. So
And
we
what
all need
about you? Have you ever had mental, physical clutter in your life? Because as an organizer, did you have your share of battles, or do you still, because maybe you're working too much now, you don't have the time?
a little bit of both. Yeah, that's part of how I got into it too, is, I was struggling with certain things. And I'd say mine was
Ah,
probably starting with the mental clutter of always filling my schedule and just wanting to stay busy and involved. And I had to take a step back and say, hey, my physical clutter is starting to manifest because of this. And so it's kind of taking a step back, regrouping, realizing what's important to me, like where am I actually trying to go, and what do I want my space to feel like, because I want to feel comfortable and safe in my own home and not feel overwhelmed by, the amount of bedding that I bought, or, the decorative pillows or laundry on the floor and those types of things. So I've definitely had to research some of my own things, and that's part of how I got here, and that helps being understanding going into other people's homes is the overwhelm that comes with everything. So
beautiful. All right. Well, also on your sheet, I know you wanted to dive in a little further to talk more about, I guess, mental, cognitive clutter. We kind of touched upon that as well, leading to physical clutter. And then, I brought that up because I feel like it affects me. Can you share some of the client experiences where people are saying that? Like, I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like I'm angry towards my children because I can't get my stuff done in my house, and it weighs on me. I don't want to go out and do anything, because I want to
absolutely.
work on my home. But then when the kids are home, I can't work on it. So it's like that's a big ball of chaos.
It is, yeah, it's just especially with kids, it's hard.
Hmm.
Um, especially if you're a single parent, or just a lot of people struggle with ADHD. That's becoming more um, widely accepted, and more information is coming out about that. And especially being a social worker in my background with that, and working with people who have like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, all sorts of different diagnoses, you see how on those difficult days or in the midst of an episode, your
Hmm.
home takes a backseat. Like you're just trying to survive, you're in survival mode, you're just trying to get through the day. And even as a parent, I don't have kids, I have dogs, but nannying and working with families, you see like how exhausted parents are at the end of the day, and that really does weigh on a person, and it feels so heavy. There's a lot of weight that comes with it. So I just want to try to help people with that and normalize that and help them understand, this is normal, and you don't have to be ashamed. It's something that we can work together on. And I don't know. There's just so much to it. It's hard to pinpoint a certain area, but yeah, you definitely see the ties between when someone's having an episode or a difficult depressive season or anything like that. How you can walk into someone's home and it's like, oh, you know what? Maybe they're not doing so good today. Like, how can I help? So
Yeah. All right. Good to know. Also, let's remind everyone how we can reach out to you before we continue.
absolutely. I can be reached on Facebook at readysetrelease.com, and same thing with Instagram. My website is www.readysetrelease.com. and email is katie@readysetrelease.com. And my phone number is 701-390-3058.
Perfect. All right. Well, what else did you want to share? I mean, I was scrolling through your website before, and I saw you also do decluttering in the virtual experience of emails. Could you tell me how that works? This is interesting.
Yes.
I have about 70,000 emails in my AOL account. I would love to be able to sit there and delete all the mail and block the mail I don't need. Is that part of what you could do?
I have done that, yes. So I've gone through people's emails. They just give me their password or their laptop, and they said, have at it, because they were so overwhelmed. They were getting so many like spam and promotional emails. And so I went through and I set it up so they're unsubscribed from all those things. And so that's one less thing that they have to look at and be like, oh, I forgot about that. Or sometimes it even helps with that spending clutter too. So they're not seeing all these promotions and spending all their money and bringing more things back into their home. But yeah, so I went through and organized, created folders for different topics, and got all their unread messages down to zero, and something that probably hadn't ever happened since they opened the account. But
No?
that is kind of an off the wall thing, but I enjoy doing it. So
Interesting. All right. Well, this is great because it really helps so many people. And in the virtual world, you also do like hard drives, like people's pictures, because that's think about all this storage we have in our phones with pictures and videos. Do you help? Could you help transport that to like a hard drive, or is that part of those services you offer?
yeah, absolutely. Part of it is going through people's computers and creating files for those, clearing out things that they probably don't need anymore. Or I've taken people's physical pictures and put them in, scanned them all in. And I actually partner with another small business around here, and she created a photo book for the client as well. So we kind of got to work together and support other small businesses, and put the client's pictures all together, and I organized them into like a file folder and different boxes.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
I had to sneeze. I'm like, could I hit the mute button in time? It happens. Well,
Yes, it does.
so let's talk a little bit about closets since I know that's one of your favorite things, right? Tell me how, okay, any rules of thumb for people out there, any tips for us at home, like the types of hangers we should be using or how long we should hold on to a piece of our wardrobe for? What do you suggest?
So that's going to vary depending on where you live. So I live in North Dakota. It's very cold, and then in the summers it gets up to like 100 degrees, versus probably at some point this winter it'll probably be -30 with wind chills. So you kind of have to plan and have a seasonal area for, scarves and like thick socks and tights and those undergarment type things, and then
Mm-hmm.
in the summer for those swimsuits. So I like to have kind of a space set aside for seasonal items where you can swap it out and just have them in little bins or something like that. um, I always like to ask clients, do you do better with folding clothes, or do you do better with hanging clothes?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a person who likes to fold and you can maintain that way easier than having to put clothes on a hanger, then I'm not going to recommend that you hang things. You have to do what works for you. Putting like things together, I like to color code my closet so that way I can, um, know what outfits I can pair together. If I have a section where I can barely pair anything with that outfit, then maybe I need to look at donating it or getting rid of it. As far as how long you keep things, that's kind of up to the person. But anytime I buy something new, I try to take something out of my closet that I haven't worn in a while and put that in the donate pile. So I always have kind of a donation pile always going in my house, and take that in every once in a while and just kind of clean out my house. And that's kind of another catch all item that I like to have, is a donation pile. So
Good.
along with mail and things like that too. But yeah, so if it doesn't fit anymore, obviously getting rid of that. And some people are like, oh, I'll fit back into that one day. And I absolutely trust that you will if that is what you want, but it's okay if you don't at the same time. And it's one of those things where say you lost weight, you know, maybe that can be one of your rewards for yourself is going and getting a fresh new wardrobe. So, trying to change the mindset on that one too.
Any suggestions on shoes? How do we organize our shoes? Do you keep shoe boxes? Do you put them out? Like, how do we, yeah, do that?
It's a good question. It depends on the type of shoe, but I would say if they're like your more expensive shoes, I would maybe keep the boxes for those or get those clear boxes. You can get them on Amazon for a fairly decent price or the Container Store. There's a bunch of different sites that you can get those containers from. But it just kind of depends on the space that you have. If you've got more space, then displaying them out is perfect, and that way you can see everything that you have. If you don't have a ton of space, I do not recommend keeping those boxes because boxes do take up a ton of space. So if you've got boots and things like that, you know, putting those inserts in them so you're keeping your shoes in good condition so you're not having to go out and buy more shoes because
Mm-hmm.
shoes aren't, you know, holding up the way that they used to. So
It's so true. I know.
yeah. I
Yeah.
don't personally like the behind the door organizers for shoes just because I don't know, it's not my favorite, but you know, it works for some people. Some people just like to have a certain stash that they wear and they grab and go out the door.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll put like a stash there. Whereas like the more going out shoes, like I'll have that in a different closet or things like that.
Beautiful. Well, we still have just 4 minutes left in the show, Katie. So, what else did you want to share about you and your work?
I would say the main thing is that I try not to judge people based off of their living situation. And again, don't feel ashamed, don't feel embarrassed. And I'm just happy that people are willing to reach out and ask for help through this process. And even if it's things like, so my dad recently passed away, and it's hard going through loved ones' belongings. And
Mm-hmm.
so I want to help people try to find a way to like memorialize that, whether
Yep.
it's putting those photos into a book or, you know, using those items as kind of like a little decoration setup in your home or something like that to really make those things feel valuable and remember the person that you lost as well, because that's another thing that I run into is, you know, oh, my mom used to wear this, but you know she's gone and I would never wear it, but like what do I do with it? And so just helping them find a way to memorialize some of those things too that are in most of our belongings. So
Yeah, absolutely. And just again, does it work? Do you offer initial, in what areas of your city do you mostly work in? Do you want to specify specifically, some areas that you work in? And if someone does want to give you a call, do you offer like an initial, what do you call it? A consultation if someone is interested in working with you?
absolutely, I do offer free consultations. So and I am willing to travel. Um, for the consultation, if it's beyond, you know, 20 miles, then I usually bill for the consultation, but just for the miles. Um, and that way I can get to know them, they can get to know me, we can make sure it's a good fit. I'm willing to travel anywhere that they're willing to pay the mileage, so that is not a problem for me. But I serve a little bit of everywhere from here to Beulah to I've done some in Turtle Lake, Bismarck, Stanley, Kenmare, all sorts of places. Probably doesn't mean much to you, but um, North Dakota is very spread out. So,
No,
but
that's
I'm happy to
awesome.
travel anywhere, and I'm happy to work with families, individuals, elderly,
Businesses you
people who are
mentioned.
moving,
That's another one we didn't touch
businesses.
upon. Yes, people that are moving, the pack up and the unpacking process you do.
Yes, I currently have 3 of those clients at the moment, so those are fun ones.
Wow. Oh my goodness. All right. So we could touch upon that too next time for sure. Remind us how we
Absolutely.
can reach you one more time.
Absolutely. You can reach me at my website at www.readysetrelease.com. My email is katie@readysetrelease.com. And my phone number is 701-390-3058. And you can reach me on Facebook or Instagram at Ready Set Release.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here. Looking forward to the next time
Yes.
we connect, Katie. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you
great
so much.
weekend. And you got me thinking about the stuff I need to start organizing for my mental sanity. Thank
Little
you.
chunks, little chunks. So
Baby steps.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.